I was mopping the marble floors of Grandview Country Club when I heard her sobbing through the supply room door. The sound cut through me like a knife, raw and desperate, the kind of crying that comes from somewhere deeper than sadness. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. I'd heard it before, in war zones and hospital corridors, but never at a wedding venue surrounded by silk flowers and champagne glasses. The reception hall buzzed with last-minute preparations. Caterers rushed past carrying silver platters, florists adjusted centerpieces worth more than my monthly rent, and wedding coordinators barked orders into their headsets. Everyone was too busy to notice the broken woman hiding behind cleaning supplies, but I'd learned long ago to pay attention to the sounds others ignored. I knocked softly on the supply room door. "Ma'am, are you all right in there?" The crying stopped abruptly, replaced by the sound of someone trying to muffle their breathing. I pressed my ear against the wood, my janitor's uniform feeling suddenly inadequate for whatever crisis waited on the other side. "Please," came a whispered voice, trembling with terror. "Don't tell anyone I'm here. Please." The morning had started like any other Saturday at the club. I dropped Lucy off at my neighbor Mrs. Peterson's apartment, kissing my 8-year-old daughter's forehead and promising to pick up ice cream on my way home. She was the only good thing left from my marriage to Rebecca, who decided military wife life wasn't glamorous enough and disappeared when Lucy was 3. Now it was just us against the world, and I'd taken the weekend janitor job to make ends meet while still being home for Lucy during the week. Grandview Country Club was old money territory, the kind of place where a single dinner cost more than I made in a week. I had been working there 6 months, invisible to the wealthy families who hosted their celebrations in rooms I cleaned. They looked through me like I was part of the furniture, which suited me fine. After what happened in Afghanistan, I preferred being overlooked. But this wedding was different. Colonel James Mitchell, my former commanding officer, was marrying some young socialite in what the local newspaper called the wedding of the decade. I tried to switch shifts when I saw his name on the booking, but I needed the overtime pay. Lucy's school shoes were falling apart, and her birthday was next month. Mitchell didn't recognize me when he arrived for the rehearsal dinner yesterday. Why would he? I was just another grunt under his command, one of dozens he'd sent into hell and forgotten about. But I remembered him perfectly. I remembered his voice screaming orders while mortar shells fell around us. I remembered how he left Johnson behind during the evacuation, claiming there wasn't time to retrieve a wounded soldier. I remembered the court-martial that never came, the reports that got buried, the nightmares that followed me home. Now he was getting married in a room I'd scrubbed on my hands and knees, and his bride was crying in my supply closet. I opened the supply room door slowly, my heart hammering against my ribs. The woman huddled in the corner looked nothing like the radiant bride from the engagement photos plastered across the club's bulletin board. Emma Whitmore's designer wedding dress was wrinkled and stained with tears, her carefully styled hair falling in disheveled waves around her face. But it was her eyes that stopped me cold. They held the same haunted look I'd seen in mirrors for years after coming home from Afghanistan. "Please, don't make me go back out there," she whispered, pressing herself further into the corner between the mop bucket and industrial cleaning supplies. Her hands shook as she pulled the torn veil around her shoulders like a shield. "I can't marry him. I can't."
Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now, back to the story.
I stepped into the cramped space, closing the door behind me to muffle our voices from the bustling preparation outside. "Ma'am, I'm Harry. I work here as part of the cleaning crew." I kept my voice low and steady, the same tone I'd used to calm wounded soldiers. "What's your name?" "Emma," she said, then immediately looked terrified that she'd revealed it. "You won't tell James I'm here, will you? He'll be so angry if he finds out I left the bridal suite." The way she said his name, with that particular mix of fear and resignation, told me everything I needed to know. I'd heard that tone before, from women in the villages we'd tried to protect, from the young translator who'd begged us not to leave her behind because her own people would kill her for helping Americans. It was the voice of someone trapped, with no way out. He doesn't need to know anything, I assured her, settling down on an overturned bucket so I wouldn't tower over her. But, Emma, you look hurt. Do you need medical attention? She touched her left cheek unconsciously, and I noticed the careful makeup that couldn't quite hide the bruising underneath. My jaw clenched, but I kept my expression neutral. Getting angry wouldn't help her right now. It's nothing, she said quickly, the practiced response of someone who'd learned to minimize abuse. I just fell yesterday during the rehearsal. Clumsy me, right? I nodded, not challenging the obvious lie. Trust had to be earned, especially from someone this scared. Instead, I pulled out my phone and showed her a photo of Lucy grinning gap-toothed at the camera, chocolate ice cream smeared across her face. This is my daughter, Lucy. She's 8, and she thinks I'm a superhero because I can fix anything with duct tape and determination. Emma's face softened slightly as she looked at the picture. She's beautiful. Where's her mother? Gone, I said simply. Been just me and Lucy for 5 years now. She's staying with our neighbor today while I work this event. I paused, studying Emma's face. Sometimes the people who are supposed to love and protect us are the ones who hurt us most. Emma's composure cracked, and fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. I don't know how this happened. 6 months ago, James was charming and romantic. He swept me off my feet, proposed after 3 months, insisted we plan this elaborate wedding. My parents were thrilled. A war hero, they said. A real catch. She laughed bitterly, the sound hollow in the small space. The first time he hit me was 2 months ago. I'd questioned one of his decisions about the wedding, suggested maybe we could have a smaller ceremony. He said I was ungrateful, that I didn't understand the sacrifices he'd made for this country. Then his hand just connected with my face. I felt the familiar rage building in my chest, the same fury that had consumed me when I'd watched Mitchell abandon Johnson to die. But I breathed through it, focusing on Emma instead of my own demons. After that, it got worse, she continued, her voice barely above a whisper. He controls everything now. What I wear, who I talk to, where I go. He checks my phone, my email, even follows me sometimes. Yesterday at the rehearsal, I accidentally spilled wine on his uniform, and he grabbed my wrist so hard I thought he'd break it. Then he smiled and told everyone I was just nervous about the big day. She showed me her wrist, purple finger marks clearly visible against her pale skin. My maid of honor, Sarah, tried to talk to me this morning, but James sent her home, said the bride needed to focus. Now it's just me and his military friends and my parents who think I'm the luckiest girl in the world. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd spent 3 tours fighting for freedom overseas, only to come home and find myself face to face with a different kind of war zone. The enemy wasn't always wearing a foreign uniform. Sometimes he wore dress blues and a chest full of medals. Emma, I said carefully, you know you don't have to go through with this, right? Marriage isn't a deployment. You can walk away. She shook her head frantically. You don't understand.
James has connections everywhere. Important people. He told me what happens to women who embarrass him publicly. He showed me pictures of his ex-fiancée from 2 years ago. She called off their engagement a week before the wedding. What happened to her? Emma's face went pale. Car accident. Single vehicle, late at night. James said it was tragic how depression could make people do reckless things. A chill ran down my spine. I remembered hearing about Mitchell's previous engagement ending, but the details had been vague. Military personnel gossiped like anyone else, but certain topics were off-limits when they involved officers with connections. He owns me now, Emma whispered. My father co-signed loans for James's business ventures. My mother's charity received a huge anonymous donation that paid for their new children's wing. If I leave him, he'll destroy my family financially. He made sure of that. The manipulation was textbook, creating webs of dependency and fear that made escape seem impossible. I'd seen similar tactics used by insurgent leaders to control villages, making examples of those who defied them to keep others in line. There's always a way out, I said firmly. It might not be easy, and it might not be comfortable, but there's always a choice. Emma looked up at me with something that might have been hope flickering in her eyes. You really believe that? I thought about the moment I'd decided to leave the military after witnessing Mitchell's corruption, walking away from a career and pension to protect my own integrity. I thought about Rebecca leaving when military life got too hard, and my choice to raise Lucy alone rather than beg someone to stay who didn't want to be there. I thought about every difficult decision that had led me to this moment, mopping floors in a country club to make an honest living. I know it, I said. The question is, what do you want to do about it? Before Emma could answer, heavy footsteps echoed in the hallway outside, accompanied by a voice that made my blood freeze in my veins. Has anyone seen the bride? She should have been downstairs 10 minutes ago for photos. Colonel James Mitchell was looking for his prize, and we were running out of time. Emma's face went white as Mitchell's voice echoed through the hallway. She pressed her hands against her mouth to muffle any sound, her whole body trembling like a leaf in a storm. I held up a finger to my lips, then quietly cracked the supply room door to peer through the gap. Mitchell stood in the corridor wearing his dress uniform, every medal and ribbon perfectly aligned, his posture rigid with military precision. He looked exactly as I remembered him, commanding, intimidating, and utterly convinced of his own authority. Two of his groomsmen flanked him, both former military judging by their bearing. One I recognized as Captain Reynolds, who'd been Mitchell's right-hand man during our deployment. Sir, maybe she's touching up her makeup. Brides are always fussing with something before the ceremony. Mitchell's jaw tightened. Emma knows the schedule. We discussed the importance of punctuality multiple times this week. The way he said discussed made my stomach turn. Find her. Check the bridal suite again, the bathrooms, anywhere she might be hiding. Hiding. Not resting, not preparing, hiding. Even his word choice revealed how he really saw their relationship. A hunter, tracking prey. I closed the door carefully and turned back to Emma, who looked like she might faint. Listen to me, I whispered urgently. There's a service elevator at the end of this hallway that leads directly to the kitchen loading dock. Staff use it to bring in supplies without disturbing guests. If you want to leave, now's your chance while they're searching the main building. Emma shook her head frantically. I can't. You don't understand what he'll do to my family. My father's construction company depends on military contracts James helped secure. My mother's charity will lose funding. He'll ruin them to get back at me. And what happens if you
Marry him? I asked quietly. You think it gets better after the ceremony? Emma, men like Mitchell see marriage as ownership papers. Once those vows are said, you become his property, legally and in his mind. She was crying silently now, tears streaming down her cheeks. I know that. But I'm trapped. He's thought of everything. I crouched down so we were eye level. Tell me about your family. Your real family, not the financial obligations. Do you have siblings? Close friends? Anyone who cares about you more than money? My younger sister Katie, Emma whispered. She's away at college, studying journalism. She never liked James, said something was off about him. But she's just 19. She can't help me fight this. What about friends? James made me cut ties with most of them, said they were jealous of our happiness, trying to poison me against him. The ones who were left, they think this is all romantic. The whirlwind courtship, the elaborate wedding, marrying a decorated officer. She laughed bitterly. If they only knew. Footsteps approached the supply room again, and I heard Reynolds talking to someone. Check every room along this corridor. The bride couldn't have just vanished. I made a split-second decision that would change both our lives. Emma, I'm going to tell you something, and I need you to listen carefully. Your fiancé isn't the hero everyone thinks he is. Her eyes widened. What do you mean? I served under Mitchell in Afghanistan. Third tour, 2019 to 2020. He was our commanding officer during Operation Desert Cleanup. I paused, memories flooding back that I'd spent years trying to suppress. We had a man go down during an insurgent attack. Private Daniel Johnson, 22 years old, father of twin babies back home in Ohio. He took shrapnel to the leg and couldn't walk. Emma leaned closer, sensing the importance of what I was sharing. Mitchell ordered us to evacuate without Johnson, said we couldn't risk the whole unit for one wounded soldier. Standard protocol was to never leave anyone behind, but Mitchell was more concerned about his mission completion statistics than human lives. My voice grew harder. Johnson was captured. We found his body 3 days later. He'd been tortured for information before they killed him. Emma's hand flew to her mouth. Oh my God. I tried to report it through proper channels, wrote detailed incident reports, requested an investigation. Mitchell had connections at every level. My reports disappeared. Witnesses suddenly remembered events differently. I was reassigned to a desk job and eventually pushed out with an honorable discharge. I met her eyes. The official record shows Johnson died heroically in combat. Mitchell got a Bronze Star for successfully completing the mission. The supply room fell silent, except for Emma's shaky breathing. Outside, I could hear Mitchell's voice getting closer as the search continued. "Why are you telling me this?" Emma asked. "Because you said he showed you pictures of his ex-fiancée who died in a car accident? Because you're not the first person he's threatened or manipulated. Because men like Mitchell don't change. They just find new victims." I pulled out my phone. I've been documenting everything I could find about him for years, hoping someday I'd get a chance to expose the truth. Photos, testimony from other soldiers who served with him, financial records showing suspicious patterns. Emma stared at the phone. "You've been investigating him?" Justice has a way of coming around, even when the system fails. I never thought I'd get this close to him again, never imagined I'd have a chance to stop him from hurting someone else. I scrolled through files on my phone. But you need someone willing to speak up. Someone with credibility who can corroborate the pattern of abuse and manipulation. "The wedding's in 2 hours," Emma said desperately. "Even if I had evidence, who would believe me over a decorated war hero?" "Your sister Katie. She's studying journalism, right? Young reporters love stories about corruption and abuse of power. And I bet she'd do anything to..."
Her big sister. Emma's eyes suddenly blazed with something I hadn't seen before, anger. "He made me block her number, said she was trying to interfere with our relationship. I haven't talked to Katie in weeks." "We can change that right now." I handed her my phone. "Call her. Tell her everything. Let her help you expose who Mitchell really is." Emma took the phone with trembling hands, then looked back at me. "Why would you risk this for a stranger? You could lose your job, or worse. James has connections everywhere." I thought about Lucy, about the world I wanted her to grow up in, a world where powerful men couldn't abuse and silence women with impunity, a world where doing the right thing mattered more than protecting comfortable lies. "Because someone has to," I said simply. "And because running away from bullies never works. Eventually, you have to stand and fight." Emma's fingers moved across the phone screen, dialing a number she knew by heart. As it rang, Mitchell's voice echoed in the hallway again, closer now. "Emma, are you in there? This game of hide-and-seek ends now. Open the door." The doorknob rattled as he tried it, finding it locked. Emma and I froze, staring at each other in the dim light of the supply closet. "Katie?" Emma whispered into the phone as her sister answered. "It's me. I need help." The doorknob rattled harder as Mitchell's patience evaporated. "Emma, I know you're in there. Stop this childish behavior and come out immediately." Emma clutched my phone to her ear, whispering frantically to her sister. "Katie, I don't have much time. James isn't who everyone thinks he is. He's been hurting me, controlling me, and I think he might have killed his last fiancée." I could hear Katie's shocked voice through the phone, rapid-fire questions that Emma tried to answer between Mitchell's increasingly aggressive demands outside the door. "Who is this janitor helping you?" Katie asked, her journalistic instincts kicking in. "Can I trust him?" Emma looked at me,
this stranger who'd become her lifeline in the span of 20 minutes. His name is Harry. He served under James in Afghanistan. He has evidence about what James really did over there. Put him on, Katie said immediately. I took the phone, keeping one eye on the door that Mitchell was now pounding with his fist. Katie, my name is Harry Mitchell. Your sister is in real danger. I have documentation proving your future brother-in-law abandoned a soldier to die and covered it up. I also have financial records showing suspicious activity around his previous fiancée's death. Send me everything, Katie said without hesitation. I'm driving up from Denver right now. I'll be there in 2 hours, but that might be too late for Emma. The wedding starts in 90 minutes, I confirmed. We need to get her out of here now, but Mitchell has people watching all the exits. Mitchell's voice turned cold and commanding outside the door. Emma, you have 30 seconds to open this door before I have maintenance unlock it. Don't embarrass yourself further. Emma clutched my phone to her ear, whispering frantically to her sister. Katie, I don't have much time. James isn't who everyone thinks he is. He's been hurting me, controlling me, and I think he might have killed his last fiancée. I could hear Katie's shocked voice through the phone, rapid-fire questions that Emma tried to answer between Mitchell's increasingly aggressive demands outside the door. Who is this janitor helping you? Katie asked, her journalistic instincts kicking in. Can I trust him? Emma looked at me, this stranger who'd become her lifeline in the span of 20 minutes. His name is Harry. He served under James in Afghanistan. He has evidence about what James really did over there. Put him on, Katie said immediately. I took the phone, keeping one eye on the door that Mitchell was now pounding with his fist. Katie, my name is Harry Mitchell. Your sister is in real danger. I have documentation proving your future brother-in-law abandoned a soldier to die and covered it up. I also have financial records showing suspicious activity around his previous fiancée's death. Send me everything, Katie said without hesitation. I'm driving up from Denver right now. I'll be there in 2 hours, but that might be too late for Emma. The wedding starts in 90 minutes, I confirmed. We need to get her out of here now, but Mitchell has people watching all the exits. Mitchell's voice turned cold and commanding outside the door. Emma, you have 30 seconds to open this door before I have maintenance unlock it. Don't embarrass yourself further.
Emma grabbed my arm, terror in her eyes. He'll make good on that threat. The maintenance staff all fear him. He tips them well, but makes it clear it's contingent on their loyalty. I thought quickly, my military training kicking in despite the civilian setting. Katie, can you contact local media? Any reporters you know who might be interested in a story about military corruption and domestic abuse? Already on it, Katie replied. I'm calling my journalism professor and 2 reporters from the Denver Post who owe me favors. But Harry, you need to get Emma somewhere safe until we can expose this publicly. There's a service tunnel that connects to the old wine cellar, I said, remembering the building's layout from my 6 months of cleaning every corner. It's not on any guest maps, and most staff don't even know about it. We could hide there until backup arrives. Mitchell's pounding stopped, replaced by the sound of keys jingling. He'd found maintenance. Move, I whispered to Emma, helping her gather the torn train of her wedding dress. Stay behind me and step exactly where I step. I cracked the supply room door and peered out. Mitchell stood 20 feet away with Joe, the maintenance supervisor, who was fumbling with a large ring of keys. Reynolds and the other groomsmen guarded both ends of the hallway. There, Mitchell pointed at our door. The bride is having some pre-wedding jitters. She's locked herself in and won't come out. Joe looked uncomfortable, but nodded. As a fellow working-class employee, he probably sensed something was off, but wouldn't challenge a military officer and wealthy club member. I turned back to Emma. When I open this door, we go left toward the service elevator. Don't look back. Don't hesitate. If we get separated, take the elevator down to the basement and follow the wine cellar signs. Emma nodded, her face set with newfound determination. Talking to her sister had awakened something fierce in her, the same spark I'd seen in village women who decided to fight back against oppression. I pushed the door open and we slipped out, moving quickly but quietly along the wall. The thick carpet muffled our footsteps, and Mitchell was too focused on berating Joe to notice movement in his peripheral vision. We made it 15 feet before Reynolds spotted us. "Sir!" he called out. "The bride is over here!" Mitchell spun around, his face transforming from concern to fury when he saw Emma's torn dress and disheveled appearance. "Emma, what the hell do you think you're doing?" But his eyes weren't on Emma anymore. They'd locked onto me, and I watched recognition dawn across his features like storm clouds gathering. "Sergeant Harry Mitchell," he said slowly, using my old rank. "I should have known. Still sticking your nose where it doesn't belong, I see." "Colonel," I replied evenly, stepping slightly in front of Emma. "Enjoying your special day?" Mitchell's jaw clenched. "What lies have you been filling my fiancé's head with, soldier?" "Just the truth about what happened to Private Johnson." The corridor went dead silent. Reynolds shifted uncomfortably, and I saw Joe's eyes widen. Johnson's name still carried weight among military personnel, even years later. "Johnson died a hero," Mitchell said coldly. "His sacrifice saved our entire unit." "Johnson died because you prioritized your mission statistics over human lives," I countered. "You left him behind to be tortured and killed while you claimed credit for a successful operation." Emma stepped out from behind me, her voice stronger than I'd heard it all day. "Tell him about the photos, James. Tell him about your ex-fiancée who conveniently died in a car accident when she tried to leave you." Mitchell's mask slipped completely. The charming officer disappeared, replaced by something dark and dangerous. "You have no idea what you're messing with, Emma, either of you." "Actually, I do," Emma said, holding up my phone, "because I just sent everything to my sister, who's a journalist, along with photos of every bruise you've given me and recordings of your threats." Mitchell took a step forward, his hands clenching into fists. "You recorded me?" "Voice memo app," Emma said with grim satisfaction. "Been running every time you lost your temper. Amazing how much evidence you can gather when someone thinks they own you." I moved protectively in front of Emma again, my own military training taking over. Mitchell was bigger than me, but I'd spent 3 tours learning how to survive, not just how to look good in uniform. "Walk away, Mitchell," I warned. "Security cameras are recording everything. You assault either of us here and it's over." Mitchell laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Security cameras that my good friend the club manager will gladly delete for the right price. Guards who know better than to cross a decorated war hero. You're both more naive than I thought." That's when I heard it, the distant sound of car engines and slamming doors outside.
The hallway window, I could see news vans pulling into the country club's circular driveway. Katie had worked fast. "Sounds like your audience has arrived," I told Mitchell. "Question is, do you want to face these reporters as an abusive groom who lost control, or do you want to walk away and try to salvage what's left of your reputation?" Mitchell's eyes darted toward the window, calculating odds like the tactical officer he'd once been. But arrogance won out over strategy. "You think a few reporters scare me?" he snarled. "I have friends in high places. This will all be dismissed as wedding day hysteria and disgruntled employee revenge." That's when Emma surprised us all. "Then explain this," she said, pulling a small recording device from inside her bodice. "I've been wearing a wire for the past hour, James. Everything you've said, every threat you've made, it's all been transmitted live to my sister's journalism professor." Mitchell's face went white as the implications hit him. Not just recorded evidence, but live transmission that couldn't be deleted or destroyed. "You clever little—" He started toward her, but I stepped between them again. "Touch her," I said quietly, "and I'll make sure you meet the same fate you planned for her." For a moment, we stood frozen in tableau. Mitchell poised to attack, me ready to defend, Emma standing strong behind me with evidence that would destroy her abuser's carefully constructed life. Then footsteps echoed down the hallway, and Katie's voice called out, "Emma, are you okay? I brought backup." Katie rounded the corner like a force of nature, flanked by 2 reporters with cameras and notepads, followed by Detective Sarah Martinez from the County Sheriff's Department. Behind them came Mrs. Peterson, my elderly neighbor, holding Lucy's hand. My daughter's eyes went wide when she saw me facing off with Mitchell in my janitor's uniform. "Daddy," Lucy called out, confused by the tension crackling through the air. Katie rushed to Emma's side, wrapping her in a fierce hug. "I got here as fast as I could. Are you hurt?" "I'm okay," Emma whispered,
but her voice shook with relief at seeing her sister. "Harry protected me." Detective Martinez stepped forward, her hand resting on her service weapon. "Colonel Mitchell, I'm going to need you to step back from this Whitmore." Mitchell's military bearings snapped back into place, his charming public persona sliding over his features like a mask. "Detective, I'm not sure what's been reported, but this appears to be a misunderstanding. Pre-wedding nerves, you know how it is." "Is that so?" Detective Martinez turned to Emma. "Miss Whitmore, do you feel safe with Colonel Mitchell?" Emma looked directly at her former fiancé, and I watched years of fear and manipulation crumble in her eyes. "No, I don't feel safe with him. I haven't felt safe in months." One of the reporters stepped forward. "Colonel, we've received some serious allegations about your military service and treatment of your fiancé. Would you care to comment?" Mitchell's jaw tightened, but he maintained his composure. "I have no comment except to say that disgruntled former subordinates will say anything to damage a superior officer's reputation." "What about the recording device your fiancé was wearing?" Katie interjected, holding up her phone, which was still connected to the live transmission. "Everything you've said and done in the past hour has been documented and transmitted to multiple sources." Mitchell's mask finally slipped completely. "You set me up," he snarled at Emma. "You ungrateful little—" "Enough," Detective Martinez interrupted sharply. "Colonel Mitchell, you're under arrest for assault, battery, and intimidation. We'll sort out the rest downtown." As Martinez moved to handcuff Mitchell, he made one last desperate play. "You have no idea who you're messing with," he told the detective. "I have connections that go all the way to Washington. This will be swept under the rug by morning." "Maybe," Detective Martinez replied as she secured the handcuffs, "but it'll be a lot harder to sweep away once it hits social media and the evening
News. Reynolds and the other groomsmen had quietly disappeared, probably calculating their own exposure to Mitchell's crimes. Joe from maintenance looked relieved that the truth was finally coming out. Lucy ran over to me, and I scooped her up, holding her tight. "Daddy, why is that man angry? Did you help the pretty lady?" "Yes, sweetheart," I said, kissing her forehead. "Sometimes grown-ups need help getting away from mean people." Emma approached us, her wedding dress trailing behind her like the remnants of a life she was leaving behind. "Lucy, your daddy is a real hero. He saved me when I was very scared." Lucy beamed with pride. "I told you he was a superhero. He fixes everything." Over the next few hours, the story unfolded like dominoes falling. Katie's journalism professor had already begun fact-checking my military records and connecting them with official reports from Afghanistan. The financial irregularities I'd documented around Mitchell's previous fiancé's death prompted a full investigation that would take months, but eventually lead to murder charges. Emma's parents arrived in a panic, having heard about the arrested groom on the news. Her father immediately began worrying about the financial implications, but her mother surprised everyone by slapping him across the face. "Our daughter was being abused, Robert, and you're worried about money?" she said furiously. "We'll figure out the contracts and the charity funding. Emma's safety is all that matters." The wedding guests were dismissed with vague explanations about a family emergency. The country club offered full refunds to avoid negative publicity. Emma changed out of her wedding dress and into jeans and a sweater Katie had brought, looking younger and more relaxed than I had seen her all day. 3 months later, I was promoted to head of facilities management at Grandview Country Club. The owners, impressed by my actions and wanting to distance themselves from the Mitchell scandal, offered me a substantial raise and full benefits. More importantly, it meant regular weekday hours and weekends off with Lucy. Emma had moved back to Denver to be closer to Katie while she sorted out her life. Mitchell's assets were frozen during the investigation, but Emma didn't want his money anyway. She'd started working with a domestic violence advocacy group, sharing her story to help other women recognize the warning signs of abuse. She called me every few weeks to check in. Sometimes we talked about practical things like her apartment search or my new job responsibilities. Sometimes we talked about deeper things like healing from trauma and learning to trust again. Lucy adored Emma and always grabbed the phone when she called. "Emma, guess what? Daddy taught me to change a tire, and we went camping, and I caught 3 fish. Well, Daddy helped, but I held the pole." One Saturday afternoon, Emma drove up from Denver to visit. She brought Katie with her, and we all went to the park where Lucy showed off her monkey bar skills and tried to teach Emma how to properly throw a frisbee. "You saved my life," Emma told me as we watched the girls play. "You saved your own life," I corrected.
You made the choice to fight back. You recorded everything, called your sister, and stood up to him when it mattered. All I did was open a door. Emma smiled, the first truly carefree expression I'd seen from her all day. You did more than that. You believed me when I needed someone to believe me. You showed me that not all men abuse their power. 6 months later, Emma started law school with a focus on domestic violence and military justice. Mitchell's investigation had won Katie a journalism award and a job offer at a major newspaper. Mitchell himself was serving 25 years for murder, assault, fraud, and a dozen other charges that came to light once investigators started digging. Lucy and I settled into our new life with gratitude for the unexpected turns that had led us here. My daughter had learned an important lesson about standing up for people who needed help, and I had learned that sometimes the most important battles are fought
Not on foreign soil, but right in our own communities. The day Emma graduated from law school, she asked me to be her date to the ceremony. Lucy came too, wearing her best dress and carrying a bouquet of flowers we'd picked from our garden. Emma's parents were there, having rebuilt their relationship with their daughter after months of family therapy. "Thank you," Emma whispered as she hugged me after receiving her diploma. "For everything." "Thank you," I replied, "for showing me that heroes come in all shapes and sizes. Sometimes they wear wedding dresses, and sometimes they wear janitor uniforms, but they all have one thing in common." "What's that?" "They choose to do what's right, even when it's scary." Emma kissed my cheek, then scooped Lucy into her arms. "Come on, superhero sidekick, let's go celebrate." As we walked across the campus together, Lucy chattering excitedly about Emma's graduation ceremony, I realized something profound had changed in all our lives. We'd started as strangers brought together by crisis, but we'd become something deeper. We'd become family, the kind you choose rather than the kind you're born into. Sometimes the most important moments in life happen in the most unlikely places. Sometimes a supply closet in a country club becomes the launching point for justice. Sometimes a janitor with a mop bucket becomes the catalyst for exposing corruption. Sometimes a terrified bride becomes the voice that speaks for everyone who's been silenced by abuse. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, you discover that doing the right thing doesn't just save someone else's life, it saves your own too. Lucy tugged on my hand as we walked to the car. "Daddy, Emma says she's going to help other people like you helped her. That's pretty cool, right?" "Very cool, sweetheart," I agreed, lifting her onto my shoulders. "Very cool indeed." The sun was setting as we drove home, painting the sky in shades of hope and possibility. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but today had proven something important. Sometimes ordinary people can do extraordinary things when they choose courage over comfort, truth over silence, and love over fear. That's a lesson worth remembering and worth sharing. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.